Hi, this is Ryan Stegman, artist of Superior Spider-Man and the upcoming Amazing Spider-Man Renew Your Vows, and you're listening to Amazing Spider Talk.
Two men who know the angles, uncover and untangle all the questions and the webs left out to tangle. Be in 1962, last Wednesday's afternoon, they'll bend your ears with reckless self-abandon. The Amazing Spider Talk. The Amazing Spider Talk. Come swing through the air, sit back and prepare for the Amazing Spider Talk.
Hello and welcome to the Amazing Spider Talk. My name is Dan Gvozden, and I'm the founder and editor of SuperiorSpiderTalk.com.
And I'm Mark Ginocchio, founder of the Chasing Amazing blog and an editor at Superior Spider Talk.
Mark, congratulations on your book finally, finding its way to everybody's hands in the world out there.
Well, just anyone who's ordered it through Amazon, but, everyone else still has to wait till June 1st, which is just very strange.
I still haven't gotten mine, so I'm anxious.
It's coming. It's coming.
All right, I can't wait. Well, hey, everybody at home or wherever the heck you are, because it's a podcast. Technology is amazing. You don't have to be home anymore. Thanks for joining us for the 27th episode of our coverage of Volume 4 of Amazing Spider-Man. We hope you enjoy this podcast and that it provides an intelligent conversation between two fans and collectors as we look at the Spider-Man comic universe in a bit of a bigger picture.
Yeah, Dan, and whether you're home, in a car, working out at the gym, on the moon, whatever.
It's blowing my mind.
At Mar-a-Lago, playing golf. Just know, for this episode, we will be discussing Amazing Spider-Man Volume 4, number 27 by Dan Slott, Stuart Immonen. And then we'll read your comments and emails, and including a few voicemails. Then we'll give away some prizes, discuss a little bit of spider news. Dan, it's an action-packed episode.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about it because I don't want to spoil anything. I think this book was pretty darn special. So let's talk about Amazing Spider-Man number 27.
What's new? Is Spider-Man still wearing leather? Is it blue? Maybe he took a week off cause he had the flu. But probably not cause his man Lindsay's riding too. Let's find out in the Spider-Man review.
Just how special was it, Mark? Did you like this book?
I did like this book quite a bit. I don't know if special leapt into my mind, but I thought it was very, very good. And kind of as a trend bucker, if you will. I said bucker, Bucker, for Dan Slott these days. I mean, we're 3 installments in, and I feel like each time out, the story keeps getting better. I have some theories behind that, but in terms of a big picture look, I mean, what's different about this, Dan? Why are we liking this so much?
It's really simple.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got a lot going on. Don't get me wrong. The players in this game are probably amongst the biggest we've seen in a Spider-Man book. I mean, I can't think of a book that has bigger things going on than mech warriors. A whole country's at stake here. I guess you could say End of the Earth and Spider Island had kind of a global implication, but this thing has got some major, stuff going on. But really, it's just kind of like a small, I don't know, small is the right word, but it's a very simple story in terms of the players that are going on. There's no big twists happening. It's a Spider-Man story.
Yeah, I mean, when in my review on Superior Spider Talk this past week, Dan, I mean, I made a referral to the Gordian knot, which is the old kind of ancient tale of Alexander the Great, approaching the untieable knot, and rather than trying to sit there and poke at it and pull at it, he just takes his sword out and cuts the knot off, and that's how he unties it essentially. And I feel like, after months, if not years, of these very complicated, mythology steeped stories like Spider-Verse and Dead No More and Goblin Nation, and where we're just trying to pull all these strings at once, and there's this dangling participle and this dangling plot thread, and there's just so much going on. Like, this is just, I feel like this is Dan Slott being, cutting the knot and being like, no, I'm just gonna tell a straightforward story about Spider-Man teaming up with Silver Sable and, maybe a few other characters going in there, and they're going after Norman Osborn, who, again, whether he's crazy or not crazy, he's still a rotten SOB, and he's the bad guy, and no one makes any mistakes about that, and you don't have to worry about what his feelings are, and, why is he acting like this? It's just good versus evil. It's Spider-Man doing heroic stuff, but at the same time acting kind of impulsively and ticking off other corners of the Marvel hero universe. These are what 50 years plus of Spider-Man stories have generally been, and I feel that's probably why we're liking this one here.
Yeah, I want to go back to what I said about this issue being special, and maybe I jumped the gun here. I think this is a great issue. I think the thing that, like, if I were to, I don't want to get into complaints because I think this book is great. I loved it. Is that, like, I think the thing that's keeping it from getting to that, like, essentials level, that, like, extra special level that we talk about, is that there's not a lot of personal stakes in this book. Like, there's stakes for everybody, but the battle between Norman and Spider-Man, I don't think it has been higher than this before because they've had a more personal connection than they do here. And that's the one thing I wish was in this book to take it to that next level, was that, like, there was something between Peter Parker and Norman Osborn to kind of, like, go beyond just being a big rock'em sock'em, go get the bad guy story, which is already great on its own.
Yeah, I guess what I would add to that is, I was kind of complaining over the first two issues of this arc, like, kind of along the lines of what you were saying, like, what are the actual stakes here? And I don't disagree with anything you said, but, like, there was a line in this issue that kind of opened my eyes to what's actually going on. It's not so much about Peter needing a win after Dead No More or anything. It's basically what boils down to is, after years of, anytime he went up against Osborn, he was the underdog. Peter finally has the resources to take the fight directly to him, and that's what he's doing. And that's actually kind of, when you look at it from that, it's, it's not it doesn't have the personal, palatable stakes to it that we get when, like the Gwen story, or even something post Clone Saga, like Death in the Family or something. But to kind of watch the inverse of, Osborn forever kind of being, the bully, always keeping his hand out and keeping Peter at an arm's length. Peter finally, between his Parker Industries money and his other technological enhancements, can just be like, you know what, screw it, I'm just gonna go right at him. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think the other thing, I've always been a sucker for art. Like, I think even before enjoying who Peter Parker was as a character, my first issue 375, that's like an art showcase for Bagley, and I think that was my thing. Like, I could imagine a, like, 5-year-old Dan Gvozden picking up these issues, and has the book ever looked this good under the pencils from, like, someone like Stuart Immonen? Like, I can't think of a more attractive looking issue than what we get here. It's just incredible how he's able to balance this, and I think we talked about his artwork. One last note: we talked about his artwork kind of like elevating this book and kind of maybe making Dan Slott, step up a little bit. but I almost think that like he's just able to sell stuff better that other artists wouldn't be able to. There's like a line in this book where like Spider-Man asserts that he's the funny one and don't anybody else step on that territory. And I think in any other book I would have rolled my eyes, but Stuart Immonen poses him just right that he's kind of like half joking and half serious, and I bought that line. But I could easily see myself like being like, oh, what garbage, under a different artist.
Right. No, it's a great point. And you know, like, yeah, he takes these other ordinary moments and I think kind of elevates them to extraordinary. But then, you know, then you have these other moments in the book which are just completely extraordinary to begin with, and he just knocks him into the stratosphere. I mean, like, you know, the opening of this book is stunning. I mean, like,
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
I mean, for a second, I thought, you know, I don't know if this is a compliment or not, but like, I forgot I was reading a Spider-Man book initially. It felt like a Batman book.
Yeah.
With Osborn's transformation and taking the bandages off and being this grotesque disfigured thing, and like with the gothic castle ambiance and everything. And is it Symkaria? Is that where we're at?
It's very Batman Hush kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's just like, you know, I'm waiting for like Ra's al Ghul to come out or something with Talia or something. I mean, it's just an aesthetic and a sensibility that we don't get a lot. And now Slott has, you know, he wrote years before he jumped back to Marvel. He wrote some Batman books. So like, again, like, I feel like writer and artists are really kind of working some, you know, in you know, synchronized, they're you know, synergized here, and it's just elevating every little thing. I mean, you know, with a lesser artist, I think, you know, going for this kind of weird atypical Spider-Man aesthetic, you're kind of like, what are they doing? What are they going for? I'm reading this for, you know, like we were joking about Dead No More when it was like, you know, I don't want to read Walking Dead meets Spider-Man. I want to read Spider-Man, you know, like, whereas with this, I'm like, no, this is cool. This is weird and edgy and kind of creepy, but like, you know, I'm digging this aesthetic and this like gothic vibe to it.
Yeah, I think that's the benefit of this volume 4, this new status quo. And I think we've said it on the issues from, like, because we've been warmer on volume 4 than we have been, you know, at least compared to volume 3. I think when it embraces things like this and you get a great pairing between the writer and the artist, and I think it's kind of mixed throughout. We've gone from like things that we think are hot garbage to stuff we're like, okay, this is all right, to stuff we really liked. And I think, to me, this is like the crest of that hill. You know, like, this is the best thing that's come out of this so far. I'm hoping he can stick the landing. And I think, you know, if anything, all three of these chapters are saying, like, I think that's entirely possible here. And, yeah, it's just a great combo between these two creators. Or even just 4 creators. You know, I want to shout out some of the other people on the art team. I think Wade von Grawbadger, whose name is just fun to say. He's doing looser inks on Immonen's work than I've ever seen, and maybe since when Immonen first started on the scene, you know, with like Next Wave and things like that. But I don't know. It's kind of, you might lose some of the detail, but it's so expressive and fun to read. It takes me back to kind of like the JR days during, you know, Straczynski, where it's like the details aren't so specific, but it's so readable and fun. And the colors here, I'm actually taking a coloring class on comics myself to kind of learn how to be a colorist and a letterer and stuff. And you learn all these lessons about, like, you know, like contrasting colors, and I'm just happy to see a comic that embraces the full range of the color spectrum, because this book is just, it's like big and bold and splashy and colorful and dire when it needs to be. And so, Marty Gracia, hats off to you. This is a beautifully colored book. I just think about that Norman Osborn reveal image. I mean, how grotesque
Yeah.
Can we talk about Norman Osborn in this book?
Well, I think we should.
Yeah.
We do talk about the comics on this podcast, so we might as well talk about Norman Osborn in the comics.
Yeah. So, Mark, let me ask you this: like, I have been struggling a little bit with this new version of Norman Osborn. Like, he's evil, but he's not crazy. Where do you draw that distinction? Because there's some parts of this particular chapter where I thought he seems like a crazy person, and then other parts later where I'm like, okay, that's not how he would normally react. Where do you draw that line?
Yeah, I mean, I'm struggling with that myself, and even to be like, is that, I don't know if I've even seen something where I've been like, oh, that's not how he would normally react. I haven't seen anything where, to me, it's patently obvious that there's been a discernible shift in this character. I mean, if anything, I kind of feel that this arc is, and if this is not what the creative team is going for, then, shame on me, I guess. But, I feel like this arc is kind of demonstrating how that line between Norman's malevolence and Norman's insanity, it's the same line essentially. They're it's interchangeable. I don't know if they're, like, you could strip away the insanity from him and he's still a malevolent, awful person who's going to manipulate and try and grab as much power and control as he can. So, and
that's changed over the years, right? Like when the character was first introduced way back in the 60s, he had this, he was kind of like a dual personality thing. Like he would be kind of like a normal businessman by day, and then when he would go insane as the Goblin, that's when he would kind of become this evil person. When he had amnesia, he was a pretty normal father figure, maybe a distant one. I think it's only through the years that like people have like done flashbacks and kind of tried to seed in this idea that Norman was crazy before, or evil before the Goblin serum.
I mean, I would say that that's something that we saw in terms of 616. We saw that more post Clone Saga return, and then kind of Ultimate and Bendis really put it over the top. And then when Bendis started writing him in Avengers and Thunderbolts and stuff like that, then that like ratcheted up even more. And that's where like this like, kind of psychotic master of the universe persona came from.
Yeah, that makes sense. I just think about all those, there was that one flashback issue where like, maybe it was in Tangled Web or something, where like Harry Osborn like bike gets broken or something, and Norman takes it out on him as a kid. Do you know the story I'm talking about?
No, I don't know this one.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what it is. Someone, if you're listening and you know what that is, I don't know, write in, let me know about it. I read it.
Maybe it's Web Spinners or something.
Yeah.
That's the one. That's one of those B books I completely missed in my heyday.
I just remember reading this thing, and it's just there somewhere, but it's not an instant recall. I mean, for me, the big standouts in this, issue is that in the beginning, he like pumpkin bombs or goblin serum bombs his doctor, all while stating that he's as sane as could be.
Right.
And it's like, I don't know, you just kind of murdered that guy, and we find out that he didn't actually murder him later on. And then,
right.
So to me, that looks still kind of crazy. I don't know what you consider crazy, but me.
And he had the best chocolate cake when he did it. Dan.
Yeah, right. Okay. And then later on in the issue, and he's changing his face to be grotesque, even though the doctor is warning him not to, all because Spider-Man is egging him on. Like, to me, that seems like old Norman. But then later on in the issue, Spider-Man, calls him out and tries to egg him on. And he's like, no, I won't let you affect me. Like, I'm going to stay here in my castle and send the tanks and stuff after you. And I was like, okay, well, that seems like a non-crazy Norman Osborn. But, at the same time, he's still a guy whose face is distorted because he couldn't wait to change his face.
Right.
So I don't know. It seems to be I don't know if it's weird characterization, but it's riding both sides of the line.
Yeah, I mean, I think we gotta wait and see to what the ultimate payoff is for the narrative about Osborn's insanity or lack thereof, and what it actually means. I mean, right now, I think it's just kind of noise. We'll see in a few issues where it goes.
Right, he can assert as much as he wants that he's sane. It doesn't mean he's sane.
Yeah, exactly. Just in terms of, moving from Norman for a bit to talk about some of Spidey's team up pals here. So, after a couple of issues of putting it off, we got the Sable explanation of her disappearance, which was basically, she went during her struggle with Rhino when she was getting drowned, she went stealth and disappeared and then kind of stayed hidden, even though everyone thought she was dead. It wasn't the greatest explanation, but by comic book standards, I wasn't offended by it. What about you, Dan?
I wasn't offended by it, but I don't know. I'd have to reread End of the Earth, which I'm not keen on doing.
Oh, come on.
But it'd be great if she used stealth in that book, and it was it was seeded in. But right. I don't remember anything like that, so it feels kind of like a cheat, but it's comics. My bigger question is, did she stab Rhino in the face? What is this image?
I don't have another read of it.
Rhino didn't have a giant scar on his face last time we saw him. What?
No.
And we don't know how he survived. So what happened there?
Because that was the thing. My impression of that story had always been they were both left for dead.
Yeah.
I mean. And I was, my no prize brain went when I was seeing Sable's story. I was like, well, just because she went stealth doesn't mean if he's got a vice grip on her and is drowning her. It's not like if she disappears that she would slip out of his hands. She's still what do you call it? Tangible, physically tangible.
Yeah.
So.
My thought was always that the two of them realize that they're doomed, and the Rhino that is still somewhat sane was I got to get out of here and I got to save myself and let her go. But I guess that's not what happened. So
yeah, well,
I just want to know how he survived a knife to the face.
Right. Well, hey, that's not so improbable.
I just don't think it was necessary. And we don't see a scar on his face in any of the preceding comics. So
no.
I don't
know. But to its credit, I actually, maybe I'm just going out of my way to commend something that, we should just be getting right in the first place. But I enjoyed that the backstory was very quick. It these little logic gaps aside, it kind of just gets in and gets out and then keeps the story moving. It doesn't grind the story to a halt. It's not like a 8-page sidebar or something, which is kind of what Dead No More was ad nauseum, where these very long sidebars of things that could have been done in much shorter snippets.
This wasn't a backup story or a standalone issue, thankfully.
No. I mean, this is all lending to the effectiveness of this larger story right now, which is just, I mean, in terms of actual plot progression, I don't know if we're that much further along than we were a couple of weeks ago after ASM 26, but I still feel every time out we're moving forward and things are progressing. We're learning new things, we're getting new information, there's new drama, there's new twists and turns, but we're not getting weighed down with what happened 2 issues ago, 6 issues ago, 20 issues ago, 50 issues ago. It's refreshing to just be looking forward for a change.
Right, we're not getting weighed down in exposition in these books.
No.
Which is, I mean, if there was one lesson to take away from Dead No More immediately, it's that lesson.
Yeah, I mean it's reminiscent of Superior through the first bulk of it. Just like every month we were moving forward in that story. Like we very rarely looked back. It wasn't until we started looking back where the story started to kind of grind down a bit. So again, it's like I'm not trying to be glib about this, but I mean Dan Slott has proven the ability to tell stories in this fashion, and he got away from it for one reason or another, whether by choice or not by choice. So to see him kind of going back to that, where to a point where we were really big fans, it's kind of reminding me, oh yeah, when this guy's clicking, I really like his stuff. I mean, he's a good comic book writer when he's writing in this vein.
Like you said, I don't feel a lot moving forward in this, in terms of like the plot hasn't taken a huge step forward, but all the things that we are moving forward are character oriented. You've got Mockingbird's turn.
Right.
You've got the reveal of the new goblin plan with all the seeding of the goblins. You've got Silver Sable revealing herself and stepping up to the plate, and all that stuff is fun.
I was just saying, can we talk about that Mockingbird turn for a second?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I mean, it's not a dramatic thing, and like again, it's like I'm not sure if I'm 100% on board with like the Peter Bobby pairing that they seem to be trying to drive home here, but the thing that made it work for me, her basically kind of resigning from S.H.I.E.L.D. and telling Fury to stuff it, is just basically her being like, I know you're a good person and you're doing things for the right reasons, even if they look bad at the time. So I'm just going to trust that. And, like, I feel like in a lot of ways, that's the kindest this and most incisive this book has been about its main character in a while. I mean, it's like, we always have to kind of feel that, Peter, not that he's a villain in his own book, but like there's something wrong with him. And This is like, it's just refreshing to be like, no, I mean, we all know that he's not perfect, that he makes mistakes, but this character acknowledging like it doesn't look good on paper, but I acknowledge that at your core, you do things for what you perceive to be the right reasons. And that's good enough for me. It's like, yeah, I mean, that's why we like Peter. It's like, he does what he perceives to be the responsible thing. He doesn't stray from that.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I'm like you. I'm not like shipping this couple, but like right after that moment you described, there's this kind of flirty moment where Peter tries to kind of like, take that compliment, and she's like immediately cuts him down, like, oh, you just made this weird.
Yeah.
And I like that because I like that kind of flirting because it just makes Peter look really awkward. So like even when he's on this kind of grand scale, he's still just like this dork who can't really handle women. I liked that, and I also was all about that Pym particles joke from Nick Fury. I don't know, it made me laugh, and when you can make me laugh from a comic, then you're doing something right.
Right. And we had some funny exchanges between Nick and Aunt May in this book. And
well, there's an exchange you never thought would happen, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, but again, I mean, like taking the status quo and kind of turning it on its ear and playing around with it. I mean, this is what I would say. I mean, speaking personally, I don't know if you share this, Dan, but these are the kinds of things I wanted to see out of the status quo. If we were to go to this place, I wanted to see like Aunt May going mano a mano with Nick Fury or Tony Stark or something, because that's what you could logically get out of this status quo.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you get out of this status quo where Aunt May is now this global investor figure. Like, She'll never go back to being I made you wheat cakes, Aunt May. Like, the disparity between that is hard to kind of like fathom, but yeah, I'm totally on board. Although I will admit, I feel like Harry Lyman has kind of been circling the same plot beat for a long time now, just reasserting that he's not an Osborn. And like I said earlier in the show, if there was an angle to make this issue more personal, I feel like Harry would be the place to do it. And I just wonder if he's going anywhere, because right now it feels very stagnant. And I'm very excited to see what Harry is either up to or who he is demonstrated, and that Dan Slott keeps hitting this same beat over and over again. Like, I'm ready to see it evolve, and I'm hoping that it goes somewhere.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, is it a case of, the lady doth protest too much, or is it a case of, oh, we don't have anything better for him right now? So we're just gonna keep him running on the hamster treadmill, like.
Yeah, I hope it's the former rather than the latter. I mean, I don't want to see like bad things coming to Harry, like I like
right.
the guy, but at the same time, if bad things were to suddenly crop up with Harry, I'd be like, all right, I'm excited to see where this is going. And yeah, I think we're at that point now. He's got to or get off the pot, so to speak. I just wanted to say about this, as a general note about this issue, is that like I think the cover to this book is pretty weak, and I don't know how you feel about all the Alex Ross covers. I think they're kind of a mixed bag. Like
I feel like they got played out a while ago. If I may be totally honest, and I love Alex Ross, but I don't think it's adding anything.
Yeah, I think issue 28's cover looks fabulous, so right. I'm not going to argue with that, But beyond the cover, I think whether this story marks anything. I know last issue we talked about misspellings in the recap page and stuff, but like this book, I thought the production quality was like a step up. We got this 2 pages of a letters page. We got a title page that actually was well put together. Like, if Marvel wants to go back to the legacy stuff, as they're saying, like, to me, this book is how you do it. You tell a classic story, you include letters pages, which kind of help build that community, and you actually like go through it and make sure your book is put together well, rather than seeming like it was like a half-second thought on a production line. Like, this, to me, this book says, this is quality, put your money in this, and that's how you get the readers back.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we'll see what happens, I guess, with a sales chart next week or in a couple of weeks. But
or if people even care about that stuff. Maybe it's just me. But
No, but I agree. It's good to see like effort being put into the whole package.
I mean, I know people have been reaching out to me about like our reviews for these books being so positive, saying that they're going to try Spider-Man out again,
Right.
And I think, yeah, if you write good stories, hopefully people will go out and pick them up.
Yeah, well, well, hopefully people are still listening to us talking about it.
Right.
What's your grade on this, Dan?
I'm giving this one an A-.
Oh, good for you. Breaking the A barrier, Dan.
I know. We haven't done it in a while, but yeah.
I'm not quite into the A barrier yet. I'm at a B+. I'm almost there. So, but I mean, I think again, my grade has gotten incrementally higher each time out. And same in terms of my numeric grade on the website, Dan. So I'm grooving on this story. I'm just waiting, like you said, I'm waiting for one more gear to hit, but I think we're close.
I can't wait to read the next one, and if I can't wait to read the next one, to me that's like about as high of praise you can give sequential storytelling,
We haven't been there for this book since Superior, Dan. I think that's a fair statement, right? I mean, even when things were going moderately well in ASM, like, yeah, that feeling of, oh man, I gotta wait 2 weeks. Can you remember? I mean, like that feeling, like we're so close.
I honestly can't, Mark. Like I think back to the time and I'm like, man, I used to rush to the comic books. I used to wake up super early and get there before work. Now it's like, yeah, we'll see. Even these I'm reading a day or two late, but like if it keeps up at this pace, and that's more because I can't actually physically make it to the store. But yeah, I don't know. I'm excited about this book again, and that is high praise. Definitely.
All right. Well, why don't we? Speaking of excited people, why don't we talk about our friendly neighborhood Spider Talk Members Club?
It's the friendly neighborhood Spider Talk Members
Yeah, Mark, it's our favorite part of the show. Well, maybe not our favorite, but we do like doing this.
It's among our favorites.
It's amongst the top 5, let's say.
There you go.
Yes, it's the Friendly Neighborhood Spider Talk Members Club. It's our club that helps support the show, where you can get all kinds of goodies in the mail every month. And it's our Patreon page, and you can go there by going to our sites and clicking on the banner that reads the Friendly Neighborhood Spider Talk Members Club. I'm just saying this a lot. So we like to give out a bunch of things to our members, and so we do these raffles every couple of weeks. We don't have any new members this time, but last time we said we were going to do a raffle on Spider-Woman Volume 1. That's the one where she's pregnant.
Yes.
A favorite of ours, Mark. So, Mark,
Yes.
I'm going to give you the countdown in 3, 2, 1. Who won this book?
It is someone by the name of Thomas Smith. I had a neighbor once named Thomas Smith, but I don't think it's the same person because I don't think that neighbor liked comic books.
I can tell you specifically that it's not, because this Thomas Smith lives in Wyoming.
Okay, definitely not.
Unless you suddenly moved.
Plus, Smith is such an odd last name. You don't see a lot of Smiths out there.
It's not like our common last names, Mark.
No, exactly. But Thomas, thank you so much for your support, and enjoy Spider-Woman Volume 1.
Yeah, that book should be in your mailbox in a day or two. I sent it off yesterday.
You'll probably get it before Dan gets his copy of 100 Things Spider-Man fans should know and do before they die.
It's entirely possible. All right. Well, Mark, thanks everybody who's a member of our show. And if you want to join up and get all kinds of awesome goodies in the mail, you can head on over to our websites and click on the button that reads, Mark,
Friendly Neighborhood Spider Talk Members Club. Why did we name it that?
All right. Let's get to your comments and emails now.
All right, Dan. Now's the part of the show where I riff and mumble to myself for a few minutes, kind of like what you just did on Friendly Neighborhood.
I know. It was really bad.
No, it's great. Improv. It's kind of like an Uncle Ben story every time out. No, comments and emails. We love to hear from you. Go to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, YouTube. Leave a rating. Leave a review. It grows our community. We'll read them on the air when you do. Or you can email us at amazingspidertalk@gmail.com. You can tweet at us and hashtag it OK2Print. Or, and we got a couple of these that we're about to get to right now, you can call 9 Red Goblin and leave a voicemail. And, that voicemail can be anything you want. And we'll usually play it unless it's really bad. So don't be really bad. But but these two voicemails are pretty good. So we got one here. We're going to hear just kind of a long-time listener, first-time caller, I guess you'd call him.
Hey, Mark and Dan. I just wanted to call because I've been listening to the podcast for about 2 years now, and like y'all, I've been a lifelong Spider fan. But I've been a bit disenchanted in the past few years, so it's really good to hear y'all's critiques and insight throughout this whole thing we're going through. Anyways, I just want to say thanks, guys, and I appreciate the podcast. And if you guys are ever in Denver, please come and visit us. Thanks, man. Oh yeah, this is Dominic in Denver.
Well, awesome. Thank you for calling in. Nice to hear people who love listening to the show. Mark, we got to...
I'll definitely visit. I love Colorado, so, I'll come on out,
Yeah, I've tried to do a couple of, meetup groups and stuff, for people that listen to the show. It's just, I don't think our numbers are big enough yet to have it actually be a thing. I tried doing San Diego Comic-Con and nobody showed up. And I figured that was the prime spot to find a large number of our listeners. So I don't know. If there are a lot of people in Denver, maybe we'll show up there.
Absolutely. There's good beer in Denver. Then there's, I'm not going to get to it. Never mind.
All right, Mark.
I was about to talk about regional culinary things, and I know that gets me into trouble. So,
all right, let's listen to our next voicemail.
Hey, Mark and Dan. This is Mike Pache. Just had a little something that's been bugging me about this new Venom. I thought maybe you guys could clear it up. I don't remember the Planet of the Symbiote storyline, so I'm not even going to touch that. But I know in the early 400s of Amazing, there was an issue where Carnage was pissed off because he had led Galactus to destroy their planet because they were evil. And then years later, in the Guardians of the Galaxy, they go back to the Planet of the Symbiotes. I don't know how, but if I remember that story right, they were evil as well. They were not good aliens. But then in issue, I believe it is 3 of the new Venom series, the symbiote claims that they're not evil, that he only was bad because of bad hosts. What's your take on this? Is my memory not serving me correctly? Just what do you guys think about this issue? Thanks, guys.
So, Dan, you might be shocked to hear this, but Venom has really never been written consistently.
Yeah, I don't really know what to say. You can think about this stuff all day long, but Venom, from day one, was supposed to be a woman, turned out to be a man. This guy has been through, whether he feeds on your adrenaline or gives you cancer, there's no real rhyme or reason for how the symbiotes work.
Right.
And also the Space Knight series was kind of garbage.
Yeah, I was not a huge fan. I will say that I was very happy when I found my copy of the Silver Surfer Carnage story that he talked about. For whatever reason, I don't know if this was part of the run of books that Marvel was shorted itself on in terms of distribution. When I was trying to fill in gaps in my collection, I would look online or on eBay, and people were trying to get $30 for those books. And I went to some random show in Jersey somewhere and was digging through a dollar bin and found both of those books there.
Nice.
And I was like, all right. What do you think about that, eBay?
I definitely spent top dollar on those books. Because it was during the short print run, and those books are not good books, but
No.
that whole run sells for crazy numbers because of how few copies there are.
Yeah, well, dollar bin, baby.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
We got some standard email questions here. This one's from Mario, asking about talking about Clone Saga stuff. He's a fan of the Scarlet Spider character, but doesn't quite understand why Marvel keeps bringing back the Clone Saga. It's not very good. It wasn't good the second time around, and depending on what you think about Dead No More, may not have been the greatest thing the third time around. Dan, what do you think? Why do you think Clone Saga lives on?
One word: nostalgia.
Yeah, and to kind of. Thanks for writing in, Mario. And you say in your note here that you just started listening to the podcast. I would say go back and listen to the Terry Kavanagh, Howard Mackey interview we did about the Clone Saga a few months back, because Terry said something that I thought was kind of spot on too. When they wrote the Clone Saga in the 90s, unpopular or not, the fact of the matter is a lot of the Dan, we were teenagers when that book came out, or at least I was. You were almost a teenager. Practically a teenager. But you got to figure the people working on the books now, they were probably our age when that comic was coming out. It's not even just nostalgia, but think about your reverence for Bagley Venom, or for me, for McFarlane Venom, that's what you hold dear. And, I go back and I read some of those Michelini McFarlane books that I grew up on, and I kind of realize, these aren't the greatest stories. They're okay. They're not the best comics ever. Certainly Stern and Romita and DeFalco and Friends and them are I feel a notch above that. But I have nostalgia for them because those were my comics. Those were my first comics. And, for a lot of these people now, the Clone Saga was their first comic. So we're just going to, at some point 20 years from now, we're going to have people constantly referencing Superior probably, it's just whatever your first comics are, you're going to hold near and dear to you, I think.
Yeah, that's a really great point. So, okay, we got the last email here. It's from Nathaniel, and Nathaniel writes, I'm wondering for both of you what your biggest missed opportunity was. I know you saw, he's referring to me, a 6.0 Amazing Fantasy 15 for $5,000. Any other big moments where you didn't pull the trigger and wish you had? I'm going back and forth on this because I bought a bunch of books that are really waterlogged, but checking off the boxes from the spiderfan.org checklist feels so good. Mark, have you passed on an opportunity?
Yeah, actually, I have something pretty recent that probably did not show up in the pages of Chasing Amazing. I mean, Chasing Amazing, I get into a lot of this stuff in terms of regrets or not regrets or whatever with comics. But Dan, you'll be interested to hear. I was in a store in Midtown Manhattan a few months ago, and I saw a decent-looking copy of Annual 1 with the Sinister Six, which I don't own, which is one of the few annuals I do think counts. And, they wanted
Hold on. I want to revel in that statement.
Okay.
Let me just soak that in for a little bit. The great cleansing rays of annual admittance.
There you go. They wanted $150 for it, which I think was totally reasonable.
Yeah.
I mean, it was probably a very good, so, and I didn't get it because I was kind of it was especially now since I, have all the other issues. It was kind of I really wasn't looking to spend $150 on a comic today, but it is something I want to get at some point, and in kind of looking at some of the usual places I look to buy comics, like websites and auctions and stuff like that, I haven't found it as cheap as that in that condition. So I'm kind of that might have been my moment, and I just let it go. So I don't know.
Was it gone the next week?
I haven't gone back because it's not a store. I don't work in Midtown. I just happen to be in there, and I kind of avoid Midtown because of the crowds. It probably is gone. Or now that I've advertised it, people are I got to look at every single It wasn't Midtown Comics, people, but it was a comic store in Midtown Manhattan. But
everybody is now checking off. Was it Tim Hanley's Comic Universe?
Yeah, it's Jim Hanley.
Jim Hanley, sorry.
Yeah, which is weirdly enough where I first met Dan Slott years earlier at a signing. I didn't just see him there and hey, you. No. So I'm sure it's gone. I didn't go back. I mean, because again, even if I went back 2 days later, I still wasn't I'm going to spend $150 on a comic today. I've kind of gotten out of that mindset over the last few months or last few years.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but if I happen to go in there and I saw it, I will buy it. And if not, then let that be my regret. How about you, Dan? Anything else?
I mean, I tend to regret the stuff I bought that I shouldn't have bought.
Yeah.
I
have a lot of those.
Yeah. I guess in terms of things that I didn't buy, I'm never going to top seeing that Amazing Fantasy 15 for $5,000. I know I have it just burned into my brain, that moment in my life. I couldn't afford it at the time.
Yeah.
But there was a point in time where I definitely could have. And even if I couldn't afford it, I should have done it, taken a credit card, and then I could have easily sold that thing for 4 times as much, online.
Oh, God. I couldn't, even with that mindset, I could never do that. If I had Amazing Fantasy
I know
in my possession, I'd just be well, I got it.
I mean, my thinking would be I could resell this and then probably buy an Amazing Fantasy 15 with the difference. Yeah. With the difference in the money I'd make.
Yeah, I hear you.
I don't know. I'll never see that again, I don't think. I don't know who
Definitely
the insane person. And they had 2 of them, and it was
I don't even see goods for $5,000 anymore for that book.
There was a like 6.5 or something right next to it that was like 15,000 or something, and this was like a 5.0 for 5,000, and I was like, "There's got to be something wrong here." I asked the guy; he let me hold it. He's like, "It hasn't been retouched." Blah blah blah, and I didn't ask him like, "What are you insane?" Because I was like really considering it. I didn't want to tip my hat, but like, yeah, I don't know who that guy was or what the condition was, but I'll never see something like that ever again.
No. Was Amy there with you when you were like examining it?
No, this is like probably in 2009 or 2010,
okay.
so it was a long time ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd just be curious if she would have been like, "Do it," or "Are you crazy?"
She probably would have pushed me to do it. I don't think I would have bought my number one if she wasn't there to push me to do it. So,
we all know that mine basically negotiated my number one for me. So
yeah, right. We were both. We both
don't have the footage. The footage is in the vault somewhere in View Askew Productions or whoever does Comic Book Men, but it's there somewhere.
You want to write to them to see if you can get access to that footage.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the production companies changed hands. Like when I was even just trying to get a sense of, is it airing this season? I could never get a straight answer. So, which kind of explains a lot.
Well. Anyway, thanks for the great questions, everybody. And it looks like it's time to bring the show to a close. Yes, you can find all of our new Amazing Spider Talk and old Superior Spider Talk podcasts over at SuperiorSpiderTalk.com, or find us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, and YouTube by searching for Amazing Spider Talk. And if you do, please be sure to leave us a review. We love getting your reviews.
Additionally, be sure to check out our brother podcast, which you can download on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, The Ultimate Spin, if you want to keep up with the adventures of Miles Morales and Spider-Gwen Stacy. They're no longer kissing each other, but they still have books.
All right. Mark, next week we're going to be recapping our 30 Essentials episodes, which took 2 years to complete. And as we prepare for the vinyl vote, tell me, why should we listen into this episode?
Well, I would hope as a subscriber to our podcast, you listen to every one of our episodes. But beyond that, I think this is going to be a fun look. I mean, not for nothing, I think we've even kind of forgotten about some of the parameters of what we set out to do 2 years ago, because 2 years ago was a long time ago. So I think for everyone who's been following along and kind of wanting to get a sense of what the ultimate end game was supposed to be for this series, this episode will kind of lay that all out there and kind of what we're going to do next with it. And, we'll also kind of reveal some of our own insights about what we've learned about these comics and what makes essential versus not essential, and maybe some picks that the other person made that were enlightening or less than enlightening. I think it'll be a good listen. So that's my sales pitch. I hope that's riveting enough for you, Dan.
I'm excited to have the conversation with you. Mark, where can we find you on the internet this week?
Well, of course, you can follow me at Chasing ASM Blog on Twitter and on SuperiorSpiderTalk.com and ChasingAmazingBlog.com. And, of course, please, if you haven't yet, order the book, 100 Things Spider-Man Fans Should Know and Do Before They Die, available at TriumphBooks.com and all other major book retailers. Dan, if I can just babble a few more seconds on this, if any of you out there have already received your books through Amazon and you want an inscription on it, just contact me either on Twitter or Facebook, or through the show, and I can get something out to you through a book plate. And also, if you've already read through the book, you could really help me out big time by leaving a review on Amazon, because that'll help my searchability. So I'm assuming you read it and love it. But even if you didn't love it, if you could put a review, that would be great. So, Dan, what about you? Where can we find you?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at SupSpiderTalk, or my personal account at Dan Gvozden. And you can read all of the awesome writing that we're doing over at SuperiorSpiderTalk.com. I picked up reviewing the title Spider-Man, so you can hear me complaining about Miles Morales every month. and my thoughts on that book. I hope I'm not complaining too much.
Oh, please. You can never be complaining as much as I do about things on that site, Dan. So you're good.
All right, cool. Mark, when you were younger, you really liked to wear all kinds of different masks and costumes. You were a real, kind of like cosplay kid. But there was one time you took it too far when you had that professional surgeon remake your face, and it went horribly. I mean, we still have some of the lingering effects of that today. But can you talk about how you got yourself out of that situation with that horrible skin graft you got?
Well, okay. So I think you're being a little too cruel about what exactly happened here, Dan. So for those at home or at the gym, we're back to this again, who don't know what Dan is referring to here. There was one time when I was younger, I wanted to play a prank on my Uncle Ben. He's a prankster. We all know that, right? So I went to a plastic surgeon to get Uncle Ben's face. He did the whole thing, and I looked like good old Uncle Ben, and I wanted to do that old like Marx Brother routine where he was gonna kind of walk down the hallway of my house, and then I was going to come out, slowly. I turn step by step, inch by inch, kind of do the mirror image thing of him, oh, we're going to drop the hat and we're going to wave and all that whole thing. I had this whole thing. It was going to be like classic vaudevillian humor here, and which would have been right up Uncle Ben's alley. So, I kind of was waiting in the shadows for Uncle Ben to come out. He started to walk by, and I jumped out to do the whole thing, and he was so frightened by it, and I was like, oh man, I hope I didn't give him a heart attack. But Dan, it was the weirdest thing. He I don't know, he started talking about the mob ties and monkeys eating his face. He started freaking out, and he's like, I knew if I saw myself this would happen. And he he tried to kill me, Dan. He turned a gun on me, and in the struggle, of course, Uncle Ben got shot by a burglar. I didn't shoot him because I'd be incriminating myself if I say that, which made me know the big lesson in life: don't try and sneak up on your Uncle Ben when you have his face. And also, with great podcasts, there must also come amazing spider talk.
Don't miss the next installment. Just for a spider cat spins a web any